following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
I'm pleased to welcome and introduce our morning's speaker, New York Public Advocate Tish James. Public Advocate James was born and bred New Yorker, a native of Brooklyn, as I mentioned. Tish started her career as a public defender with legal aid and later held posts in the State Assembly and Assistant Attorney General for the New York State Brooklyn region. She was elected to the New York City Council in 2003 and won the election for Public Advocate last year. She's a graduate of New York City Public Schools, CUNY's Lehman College, and Howard University Law School. Public Advocate, as you know, your office plays a critical role in policy creation in the city, and we're eager to hear your plans for sustaining our city's middle-class population and partnering with New York City's business and development community to improve the economic well-being of our city. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Public Advocate Tish James.
I want to thank all of you for joining me today for today's discussion, which I hope will lead us to thinking more about how we can foster meaningful relationships between government and the private sector and collaborate on key proposals I believe can have a significant impact on improving our city. But before we do that, let me take a moment to reintroduce myself and the work of my office. As an attorney and a former assistant attorney general, a former council member and a public defender, I believe that there is a need in our government for a robust voice for the middle class and for working families who are struggling to make progress and climb the economic ladder. Over the past 11 months, and yes, it's been 11 months, it's hard to believe that 1/4 of our term is over. My office has successfully pushed for bringing body-worn cameras to NYPD. We were successful in getting universal school lunch for children in public schools, in the middle schools. We restored middle-class jobs for 250 UPS workers in Queens. We relaunched the city's worst landlord watch list, and I know that there are no landlords who are on that list that are in this room. We filed several lawsuits against some bad landlords in our city. We sought and won protections to combat sexual harassment and assault in the subways. And in fact, the MTA is making major changes related to training and response and is even installing cameras in subways, in subway cars because of our work. We have also advocated for consumer protections as part of the merger between Time Warner and Comcast. We have expanded the policy and legal arm of the office, and we've used our office services operation to open more than 7,000 cases in the city of New York and to bring some resolution to a number of thousands of residents in the city of New York. So we've been incredibly busy. And so I am deeply appreciative of this opportunity and hope we can continue to listen to each other and seek ways to work collaboratively together. And let me just say at the outset, I fundamentally reject the notion that someone who is pro-union, pro-tenant, pro-affordability, somehow has been equated to being anti-business and anti-development. Let me say that again. I reject the notion that I, someone who is a strong proponent of the union, affordability, and tenants, somehow that has been translated into the business community as someone who has been anti-development and anti-business. It's just not true. Ours is a city built by labor and management, employee and employers, the rich, the poor, and the middle class. And today, our future success and global competitiveness relies heavily upon creating a new plan for a sustainable middle class and doing that together. We must build up our shrinking middle class with a new plan focused on sensible and profitable master planning, economic growth in the outer boroughs, and a realistic plan to combat our retirement crisis. A better New York balances the needs of its people and businesses through partnership and visionary thinking so that everyone has an opportunity to be successful. This tenet underscores a basic fundamental principle: equal access and equal opportunity for all. We face a defining moment in New York City. Overall, our middle class is evaporating, and immediate action is required to protect and to sustain our city. Businesses benefit from the vibrant purchasing power of an expanding middle class. Neighborhoods also benefit when the working poor are regularly climbing the ladder of upward mobility into the middle class. A thriving middle class pumps both wealth and resiliency into our city. Building a sustainable middle class will entail innovative and long-term commitments in key areas. And one area that I have a long history in fighting for is the development and protection of homes for middle and moderate income families. But before we can even talk about development, we need to examine and restructure the Department of Buildings. Just as a minimum, the Department of Buildings, I've called on the Department of Building to reduce its backlogs for permits by instituting more expediters. These backlogs are stopping responsible development from happening as a city, and we must focus on cutting the red tape and fast-track development. Growing families that once were able to buy a fixer-upper home in downtown Brooklyn or Long Island City are now priced out of these markets entirely. Even the Bronx, which is some of the lowest rents, is becoming less affordable. Access to capital without predatory terms must be available. And while the mayor has an ambitious plan that I support, I have urged the administration time and time again, both this administration and the previous administration, that we need to maximize the number of large units, 3 and 4 bedroom apartments, which I believe is key to keeping families in the city. And according to a recent report on home affordability, an estimated 12% of for-sale homes in Brooklyn were available for middle-class residents. And meanwhile, in Manhattan, only 2.3% of for-sale homes were available to the middle class. Home ownership opportunities are critical for the middle class and because they help build equity. The lack of home ownership opportunities within HPD is stifling the growth of the middle class communities. And the mayor should set aside at least 10,000 units of his housing plan for home ownership, condo, and co-op ownership options for working families, using similar tools and creative financing products that brought forth the Mitchell-Lama program and the Partnership Housing Program. We can even propose putting forth a new bond proposal to build this initiative. Because we are losing our middle class. Our neighborhoods are becoming more homogeneous, less ethnically and economically diverse. I've heard from constituents, my former constituents in Fort Greene and Clinton Hill and Prospect Heights and Crown Heights. I get letters on a weekly basis from North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Virginia, even Texas, saying, Tish, you should come join us. And primarily, it's related to the cost of housing. And it's a basic precept to any businessman that with less diversification brings increased risk. The risk is not only to our residents, but also the viability of our city to sustain its growth to be a market for goods and services. We cannot promote an environment that will lead us to a situation where our tax base is too dependent upon upper income taxpayers and an enormous cost of services for the poor without anything in between. It's just not sustainable. So in order to sustain the middle class, we have to identify jobs. And so the question I'm sure all of you are asking is, where are the jobs for middle class New Yorkers? Where are those jobs for your constituents who are now elsewhere? And although, you know, it's great to turn some red states blue, the bottom line is that our concern should really be for New York City. And so while the city faces a reduced unemployment rate and increased job growth since the last recession, most employment opportunities have been created for the lower end of our economy. There are over 60,000 fast food workers in our city who earn on average $8.90 per hour. I've stood side by side with them to fight for higher and fairer wages. And despite the stereotype, many of them have degrees, but cannot find opportunities in our city. When people are paid a fair and equitable wage, we lower social and economic costs to the city. We increase productivity and increase the purchasing power of families. Everyone in this room knows that the path to the middle class starts with education and with higher paying jobs. And the city must do better to refocus our job growth on middle class jobs instead of solely bringing the big box retail to the outer boroughs. All of these issues that I've discussed are draining our economy and threatening our social fabric as a city. They are issues that we've dealt with for years. But there is good news. And it is that these issues can be fixed by refocusing our efforts on creating a new plan for a sustainable middle class in New York City. Before New York City was a city, it was an idea built on the backs of working people during the Great Migration, of titans of industry and artists. By the early 1920s, New York City was the most populous urbanized area in the developed world. Our great city was erected by great minds who increased our city's apartment housing by tens of thousands, unified areas in the city through the development of bridges and tunnels, and brought open space, cultural centers like Lincoln Center and the United Nations headquarters into New York City. We had a healthy balance of big development spawned by Robert Moses and a system of checks and balances from progressive urban planners like my shiro, Jane Jacobs, who brought forth the idea that our streets and citizens are safer when there are fewer vehicles, more open spaces, and the protection of neighborhoods and diverse communities. Mayor Koch, God rest his soul, and Mayor Dinkins transformed the housing landscape. Great thinkers aren't just products of their time. Often they're ahead of their time. Just a few years ago, who would have thought we would be on the road to transforming Freshkills Parks from the world's largest landfill to a cultural symbol of renewal, a public space that will be over 3 times the size of Central Park. Who would have imagined the High Line, an abandoned railway in Manhattan, could serve as the borough's new elevated green space and rejuvenate the entire west side that surrounds it. We can do that for Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. And so we must ask ourselves, what does this moment require? We are at a critical juncture where we can turn down one road of short-term and short-sighted construction while ignoring infrastructure needs and a strong economic base for our population. Or we can choose the path of a properly planned future where the profits and growth of business are tied to the long-term success of our city, and it can be limitless, and we can do it together. It is clear to me that the future success of our city depends on our growth as an entire region. And that is why I am proposing that we create a sustainable city and middle class through the designation of a New York City master planner and new borough development plans. An objective master planner can bring more visionary thinking and progressive principles into the city land use and infrastructure policies. Simply put, we need someone that can connect the dots and ensure that smaller projects contribute to our larger vision as a city. The city should designate a new master planner to revamp mixed-use residential and commercial transit-oriented development in the outer boroughs, similar to Willets Point, which I applaud and support. We must also complete an audit of available city, state, and federal land that is ripe for development and realize that the future success of our city depends on our growth as an entire region. We need the middle class and having a master planner to provide the city with a layout of needs and who can develop goals that will balance the needs of both the community and the business sector is essential. More and more regional centers across our city are competing for our middle class. More working families are leaving our city because it's just too expensive. The rent, yes, is too damn high. And so, for example, a master planner would be responsible for developing innovative ways to expand transportation options, which will in turn help to increase jobs and reduce commuting times. New Yorkers living and working outside of Manhattan face longer than normal commuting times, which are a deterrent not only for middle-class New Yorkers, but employers alike. You can just ask the people who are arriving to the room. It's probably because the train was late. 160,000 people cross the Brooklyn-Queens border to work daily. Studies have shown throughout the Western world that longer commute times and frustrating commute methods are taking their toll on employee health, and that problem is translating to lost productivity. And while we're at it, let's make sure that the MTA capital plan is fully funded and fairly financed, not just leaving working class strap hangers holding the bag for reduced investments in the economic lifeblood of our metropolis, public transportation. A New York Observer article from a decade ago noted that the city treats each potential development on an ad hoc basis with no consistent view towards how a new building will fit into the neighborhood and the city at large. That story might as well have been published yesterday. It is time our city designate an independent master planner that works with input from the mayor, the city council, the public advocate, the Department of City Planning, the Planning Commission, borough presidents, and the Regional Plan Association, which offers opportunities, research, and advocacy for the city. And I know I'm about to step on a third rail, but why not? Our land use process needs an overhaul. It needs the attention of an objective expert to look at areas of reform, including our ULURP process, which I believe can be improved to balance the needs of the community and businesses alike. I too have been frustrated by the ULURP project, particularly when I wanted to expedite projects in my district and when I was a city council member. Developers need business predictability to know the rules of the road beforehand. They must borrow and build with confidence, knowing that government and communities will support their projects because these projects feed into a larger plan, one that will take our great city into the next century. Renewal means growth, and growth for the business leaders in this room should mean opportunity for all. The residents' lives and communities can improve with the double bottom line of our city businesses succeeding. And secondly, we must look towards planning for a sustainable middle class. We must create middle-class neighborhoods by uniting workforce training with the needs of our city's small businesses and helping businesses to scale up, particularly in the outer boroughs and in economically depressed neighborhoods. The small business sector provides nearly 95% of jobs in the city, and these businesses contribute to the social fabric of our city, as well as strengthen our economy. I am proposing a new program that will align workforce training and strengthen our businesses so that we can create and sustain a middle class. Furthermore, we must return to a small business-driven economy. Ownership of small businesses has traditionally been a way to the middle class for city entrepreneurs, especially for emerging and recent immigrants to the city, and it's been a way to ensure that our middle class grows. When small businesses thrive, New York thrives. But we must make it easier for business to excel, and that's why I fought long and hard to stop the excessive fines. I just recently heard about a business in Long Island City that was fined $2,500 for advertising for hostesses because the thought was that hostesses discriminated against men. $2,500, a nonsense claim. And so I am trying to find this business to highlight how we've got to really change and treat small businesses with more respect and with more intelligence. I'm an advocate for all, including small business, and we must foster greater cooperation and opportunity, including for the legal community and for freelancers. And the city pension funds offer an opportunity, including the $54 billion NYSERS retirement fund, on which I am a trustee, must look to do more in city investing in small businesses to grow our retirees' money while assisting in growing New York City's small businesses, whether through increased lending or direct equity limited partnerships. We must look to all opportunities. And I will be asking my fellow trustees our outside consultants, the controller, as advisor to the systems to explore ways to maximize such investments going forward. Now, it's not a new idea. You see, our state controller, Tom DiNapoli, his successful in-state private equity investment program has committed $1.25 billion, and he has invested over $729 million in 282 companies in our great state. It's a model of how pension and fund dollars can be put to work as an economic driver of growth and revitalization of industries. The businesses of New York should count on our pension dollars as partners in their success. It's a win-win for businesses, retirees, and taxpayers. The city should develop a partnership with the Department of Small Businesses, colleges, and universities in the city, local business improvement districts, chambers of commerce, and workforce development centers to help businesses identify their needs and opportunities to scale up through technical assistance. Unite those businesses with workforce centers in their neighborhoods that can provide and train employees to fill those needs through direct hiring and apprenticeship programs. For example, the city was able to successfully, and I as the council member was involved, we redeveloped the Brooklyn Navy Yard with local businesses by assessing their needs to stay in the city and to expand, combined with keeping rents affordable and providing business support services. The next step is maintaining affordability at other similar developments like Industry City in Sunset Park and the East New York Industrial Park, as well as in Hunts Point in the Bronx. Additionally, we know that the face of business is changing, becoming more collaborative. Business improvement districts have replaced merchant association. Shared kitchen and culinary incubators are becoming more common. Legal and advocacy organizations are working together. Industrial and manufacturing yards and startups have become central to the way we do business. New York City is home to over 50 co-working spaces, such as General Assembly or the Fueled Collective, which hosts over 30 New York-based startups focused on mobile app design. Compared to the retail or service industries, an average manufacturing job pays over 30% more. These industries can provide better job security and are more likely to provide crucial benefits like healthcare. The overall initiative to align workforce development with our small business would be a major undertaking by the city, but it would strengthen local businesses. We can increase employment opportunities that ultimately lead to stronger communities and a more economically diverse city, particularly in the outer boroughs. And funding to support this initiative would come from consolidating all of the workforce development programs that are currently run in a myriad of agencies, including but not limited to NYCHA, Department of Education, HRA, and the alphabet soup of agency continues. Business growth is quite simply the road to higher wages, and our job in government must be to encourage that growth effectively and efficiently. Finally, the path towards creating a sustainable middle class in New York depends upon our preparing for a growing, aging population. Our senior population is increasing, but too many people are not planning for retirement. The senior population here in New York City is estimated to increase by 1 million, a 47% increase by 2030. And quite simply, too many New Yorkers are not prepared for retirement. Nearly 60% of New York area workers are without access to a pension or a 401k at work. And the statistics are not much better for workers with access to a retirement plan. The average New Yorker without a defined benefit retirement plan at work is saving only 54% of the money they will need for retirement. A recent study by the New School revealed a 17% drop between 2001 and 2014 in the percentage of New York City workers participating in their company's retirement plan. Only 12% of New Yorkers had a defined benefit plan. Too many people have too little savings and no access to quality retirement planning. And so I propose that New York City lead the way towards studying how a city such as ours can create a centrally pooled retirement fund by 2013, open to all private sector New York workers who currently have no access to a pension. A retirement fund could offer investment, accumulation, wealth, and annuity advantages, with many similar benefits to well-managed public employee retirement systems in New York City and New York State. These funds generally offer secure savings with lower fees and higher returns than 401ks. Such a system could undoubtedly create a competitive advantage for private businesses here in New York. In addition to attracting and retaining employees, such a plan would offer employees an alignment of interest with long-term business growth, stability for their own lives, and the hope of a retirement in place and with dignity, where they could continue to live, pay rent, and a mortgage. A city that has retired elderly residents purely dependent on social and government assistance and programs cannot flourish and cannot be sustained. Businesses must also educate their employees on the risks involved in removing their existing retirement funds, dipping into their retirement funds before they are retired. We need more financial literacy for our working adults and for younger adults. It's time we make a real change. And that's why this month I will be introducing a comprehensive bill in the City Council to amend the administrative code of the City of New York in relation to establishing a private pension advisory board, working with business, labor, and academic leaders of our city. This 7-member board would study the establishment of a pension fund for private sector workers in New York City and make specific recommendations to the state legislature, the mayor, the city council, the controller, and the borough presidents. Every New Yorker must have an access to safe and secure pensions by 2030. This goal can only happen with the cooperation of employers, with labor and government working together. And of course, this holds just as true for all the challenges I've discussed and those we haven't gotten to this morning. The long-term sustainability of our city depends upon creating opportunities for New Yorkers from every corner of our society, and it will take unprecedented cooperation between all of us. In so many ways, New York City is living up to its reputation as a superstar city, as an exceptional city. Imagine what we can do if the city focused on sound policy that is grounded in long-term solutions and offers cooperative planning that fosters a thriving middle class. My vision for the city is one that offers secure retirement for seniors, jobs beyond big box stores and fast food restaurants, and comprehensive master planning. This threefold approach that I've shared will help us to build a sustainable city with sustainable growth, leading to a sustainable future. We've done it before, we can do it again, and we can do it with the voice of a progressive. Thank you.